Over a billion people on Earth recognize him instantly. Not by his face, not by his name, by a single color, white. And here's what almost nobody stops to ask: why white? Of all the colors in the world, why has the most powerful religious leader on the planet worn the same one every single day for centuries? Welcome to TinyButWise, where we take the small things you ignore every day and reveal the big truths hiding inside them. Today we're talking about the Pope, specifically why he always wears white. It looks simple, it looks obvious, but the answer stretches back over 1,000 years through political power struggles, near-death moments, religious symbolism, and one very surprising accident of history that changed the papacy's appearance forever. Before we get there, I want you to sit with a few questions. Have you ever wondered why, when world leaders meet presidents, kings, prime ministers, they wear dark suits, military uniforms, or royal colors, but the Pope walks in wearing pure white and somehow commands more attention than all of them combined? And here's a stranger one. Did you know the Pope wasn't always supposed to wear white? That for most of the Church's early history, white wasn't even the papal color. And the most uncomfortable question of all, is the white robe really about humility, as the Church teaches, or does it quietly communicate something far more powerful than humility ever could? Let's go back to the beginning. The early Catholic Church did not have a strict dress code for its leaders. The first popes, and yes, there were popes going back to St. Peter himself, around 30 AD, wore whatever the standard religious vestments of the time were. Mostly dark colors. Reds, purples, and blacks dominated early Christian ceremonial clothing. Purple in particular was the color of emperors and kings in the ancient world. It was expensive, rare, and exclusively associated with supreme power. Some early popes wore it to signal their authority. Red symbolized the blood of Christ and the martyrs. Black represented solemnity and holiness. White was not the default. It was not the plan. So what changed? Here's where history takes a genuinely surprising turn. The year is 1566. A Dominican friar named Antonio Ghislieri has just been elected pope. He takes the name Pope Pius V. And here is the detail that changes everything. Dominican friars wear white. That was their order's color, their habit, their identity. And when Pius V became pope, he did something no pope had done before. He kept wearing his white Dominican robes instead of switching to the traditional papal vestments. Think about that for a moment. One man's personal loyalty to his religious order, a decision that could have been reversed the very next day, ended up defining the visual identity of the papacy for the next 5 centuries. Pius V reigned until 1572. By the time he died, the white robe had become so associated with papal authority that his successors simply kept it. Habit became tradition. Tradition became law. And law became something that felt ancient and inevitable, even though it was actually one person's wardrobe preference. But the story doesn't stop there. Because while the white robe started as an accident of personal history, the Catholic Church is extraordinarily good at finding deep meaning in things, and they found layers of meaning in white that made it feel not like an accident at all, but like destiny. In Christian theology, white is the color of purity, of light, of divine presence. When Jesus was transfigured on the mountain, in one of the most dramatic moments in the New Testament, his clothes became dazzling white, whiter than any human bleach could make them. In the book of Revelation, the saved souls in heaven are described as wearing white robes. Angels appear in white. The resurrection is associated with white linen. White doesn't just mean clean in Christian symbolism. It means transformed, elevated, touched by the divine. So when the Pope wears white, he is not just making a fashion choice. He is making a theological statement. He is visually aligning himself with purity, with heaven, with the light of God. Every time he steps onto a balcony, every time he rides through a crowd in the Pope Mobile, every time he appears on a world stage, that white robe is communicating something that no speech could say as efficiently. I represent something beyond this world. Now here's the twist that most people never consider. White is actually one of the most psychologically powerful colors a leader can choose, and not just for religious reasons. In color psychology, white signals authority through contrast. Think about it. When the Pope stands next to a head of state in a dark suit, or a cardinal in red robes, or a crowd of thousands in ordinary clothing, he stands out completely. You cannot miss him. Your eye goes to him first every single time. White creates visual dominance without aggression. It commands attention without demanding it. It is quietly one of the most strategic colors a public figure can wear. Compare this to how other world leaders dress. American presidents wear navy or charcoal suits, colors that signal competence and seriousness, but blend into the visual landscape of a crowd relatively easily. Military leaders wear camouflage or formal uniforms that code them as part of a system. Monarchs wear elaborate ceremonial dress that signals tradition and wealth. But none of them achieve the instant visual separation that a single white robe does. The Pope doesn't need a crown or medals or a flag behind him to be identifiable. The color does all of that work alone. And here is something that will genuinely surprise you. The Pope's white is not one shade. There's an entire system around it. The formal papal cassock, the long white robe, is made of white-watered silk for major ceremonies. For everyday wear, it's white wool. The skull cap he wears, called a zucchetto, is white. His shoes have historically been red, another deep symbolic color representing the blood of martyrs, though recent popes have simplified this. Even the smoke that rises from a Sistine Chapel when a new pope is elected uses white as a signal. White smoke means a new pope has been chosen. Black smoke means the vote failed. The entire communication system of one of the world's oldest institutions is built around that color contrast. But perhaps the most powerful moment involving the white robe in modern history came on May 13, 1981. Pope John Paul II was in St. Peter's Square, moving through a crowd of tens of thousands of people. A gunman opened fire. The Pope was shot twice at close range. As he collapsed into the arms of his aide, the white of his cassock turned red with blood, and that image, broadcast around the world, became one of the most iconic photographs of the 20th century. The white robe didn't just represent purity in that moment. Its contrast with the blood made the violence visible, made the moment undeniable, turned a political assassination attempt into something that looked, to billions of people watching, like a martyrdom in real time. John Paul II survived. And when he appeared again in public, in white, it carried a weight it had never carried before. That is the power of a color with a story. White on the Pope is never just white. It is history, theology, psychology, and centuries of accumulated meaning all compressed into a single visual choice made by one Dominican friar in 1566 who simply couldn't bear to take off his habit. And maybe that's the deepest lesson here. The things that feel most permanent and inevitable, the things that seem like they must have always been this way, are often the result of one small, human, almost accidental decision. Someone kept their white robe on, and the world built a meaning around it so deep and layered that 500 years later, a billion people recognize it in an instant. So here's what I'll leave you thinking about. If the color of the most recognized religious robe in the world was essentially an accident, what other ancient traditions around you are secretly just someone's personal habit that nobody ever thought to question? If you found this video valuable and learned something new, do us a favor, like subscribe to TinyButWise and share it with your loved ones. Now your turn. Drop a comment with the next topic. We read every comment, and the best suggestion gets a shout out. See you there.